Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shanty. So, I know you're saying something looks different about him. I wonder what it is. Did he get new glasses? Well, what's different is, to quote Al Pacino from my least favorite Godfather movie, every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Yes, we're going to talk about COVID again. Even though a month ago I said, we're not talking about COVID anymore. We're done. That's all, folks. Only we're not done. Yes, all the executive orders have gone away. Poof, they're gone. And there's really no MDHHS orders to speak of unless you're in healthcare or prisons or something like that. And there's no MIOSHA emergency rules to worry about unless you're in healthcare. But here we are, and I'm sitting here with a mask on. Why am I sitting here with a mask on? Well, there's really three reasons I'm sitting here with a mask on. Number one, I'm trying to make a point. Number two, it covers up this ugly mug of mine. And number three, and the real reason is, I think it's kind of cool. It makes me look like a Batman villain or something. That's kind of cool. And the real reason we're talking about masks is because back in July, the CDC issued some new updated recommendations about when people should wear face masks. And we didn't talk about it back in July because the guidance focused primarily on what they called substantial or high transmission levels. And at the time, of the 83 counties or so that there are in Michigan, I think it's 83, only about 10 counties were in substantial transmission. Well, when I went and looked at the map today, and the CDC has a map, you can go look at it, it's got color codes on it, which is something even I can understand. We're now up to 61 counties that either have substantial or high transmission rates. And of those 61 counties, we've got Ottawa and Kent and Midland and Kalamazoo and Ingham and Wayne and Macomb and Oakland. In other words, every county that Warner, Norcross, and Judd has an office. We've either got substantial or high transmission rates, and you can see that throughout the state of Michigan. We're still doing better than a lot of states. If you go down south, it's all red. So we're doing a lot better than some areas in the country, and primarily that's because we've done a better job of getting people vaccinated, but the numbers are still going up. So we need to think about that CDC guidance. Now remember, the CDC guidance is guidance. And it's not a rule, it's not a law, it's guidance. And what we're getting now from the state of Michigan is guidance, not a rule, not a law, guidance. On August 4, Michigan issued an information piece that they call When to Wear a Face Mask, revised August 4. And you can find it on the michigan.gov website if you want to go look at it. And basically what it does is reiterate what the CDC is saying about mask wearing and who should wear a mask when. And I want to go through that for you in a minute. And then we're going to talk about what that means for us here in Michigan. And we're going to talk about what it means for you and what you should be thinking about, because that's what the Shanty's about. It's not about a rule. It's about what you should be thinking about. So the CDC's got 6 kind of bullet points that they changed when they issued this guidance that Michigan is now reiterating. The first of which involves K through 12 schools. And they want everybody in K through 12 schools, teachers, staff, students, and visitors, to wear a mask at all times, regardless of vaccination status. And to me, that makes sense because little kids under 12 can't get the vaccination. So if Delta's bad, and if it's bad for little kids, we want to protect those kids, and we're going to do that by putting masks on everybody. That's what we're going to do it. The CDC recommends community leaders encourage vaccination. They recommend that fully vaccinated people might choose to wear a mask regardless of the level of transmission. And they recommend that fully vaccinated people who have a known exposure to somebody with COVID get tested. They want you to get tested 3 to 5 days after the exposure and wear a mask at all indoor public settings for 14 days or until you get a negative test. Those are all just recommendations. Now, there's one requirement in this list from the CDC. The CDC requires that all persons wear masks on planes, buses, trains, and other forms of public transportation, as well as at airports and stations. The CDC is requiring that, all right? So if you're going home for Christmas with John Candy and Steve Martin on planes, trains, or buses, the mask required, got to have a mask on, okay? And the airlines are putting those rules in place anyway, but you've got to have a mask on if you're getting on an airplane. That's the rule. And then the area that really touches on why we're doing this and why we're talking about this. I'm going to read this verbatim. In areas with substantial and high transmission, the CDC recommends that everyone, including fully vaccinated individuals, wear a mask in public indoor settings to help prevent the spread of COVID, especially the Delta variant, and to protect others. Okay? So what the CDC is saying now is if you are in a public indoor setting, and we can parse what a public indoor setting is and what it isn't. Does it mean a workplace or doesn't? It doesn't matter. These are recommendations. So it's a question about what you want to do with this recommendation. If you're in a public indoor setting, they want you to put that mask back on, even if you're vaccinated. Arguably, that means we're back to, if I'm in my office, I'm okay, but if I walk out of my office into the hallway to go to the break room, I should have a mask on. Again, not a rule, recommendation, not a rule. Now, how do I know it's not a rule and a recommendation? Because the very next thing the state of Michigan says in this guidance is this. What does that mean for people in Michigan? In Michigan, there is no statewide requirement to wear a mask in most settings. However, local health departments, establishments, and school districts may have additional rules that must be followed. And that's why we are talking right now. It's the word establishments may have additional rules. You are an establishment. Your place of business is an establishment. And what the state of Michigan is saying is you get to set your own rules. Now, the upside to that is you get to set the rule that you think is right for you. And I'm not going to opine on whether you should make people put masks on or whether you shouldn't make people put it. I've got an opinion. You might guess what it is, given that I'm sitting here with a mask on. But it's up to you, all right, what rules you're going to follow. But the state of Michigan is also telling you you get to set the rules. Now, we didn't need them to tell us that. We already knew that. So there's the question. There's the $64 million question. Can I, as an owner of a business, tell my employees and customers, you must wear a mask to enter my place of business? And the answer to that question is unequivocally, absolutely, yes, you can. Now, there may be exceptions to that. Okay, we've been dealing with the ADA exception, somebody who can't physically wear a mask, and the Title VII exception, I can't wear a mask because of a sincerely held religious belief. But aside from those exceptions, the question you now have to ask yourself is, am I going to make people do this? I don't have the state telling me I have to do it now. I have to decide, am I going to do it? And there's some things you want to consider. Okay? Now, there's a lot of people out there that are worried about another outbreak and what it would do to their workforce. So how do we solve that? Put a mask on, right? When we want to get your people vaccinated, but you're not going to make your people get vaccinated, or are you? Because it's the same issue. Can I make you put a mask on? Yes, I can. Can I make you get a vaccination? Well, yes, you can. At least right now today, the answer to that is yes, you can. And if you look at the news, you're seeing a lot of great big employers who are saying just that. Google, United Air, Netflix, the list goes on and on and on. If you want to come back to work and work at our place, you've got to have a vaccination. That's the way it's going to go. We haven't seen a lot of required vaccinations to this point, but it looks like we're moving in that direction. We've already had 2 lawsuits, one involving the hospital in Texas, one involving Indiana University. The Indiana University one, by the way, maybe, not is, maybe, going to the Supreme Court of the United States. But in both of those cases, judges have said vaccination requirements are permissible. Vaccination requirements are permissible. Mask mandates are permissible if you want to put them in place. Now, before you do that, I'm going to strongly suggest that you give us a call and you talk to one of us about all of the issues associated with this and what the pros and the cons are. Even if you just want somebody to bounce stuff off of, it's a good idea. So we can think about all the issues that might face your particular workplace. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is if you've got a union, the rule may have changed now. Before, you could hide behind the state. OSHA said you must. My OSHA said you must wear a mask. So your union people really couldn't say anything about it. Now they might have something to say about it. It might be a mandatory subject of bargaining, and you might have to bargain with the union over it. But if you don't have a union, you should think of this like this as you would any other rule you're going to put in place. I heard one lawyer on the news, she put it really in a great way, and I thought it was funny. She was asked, can an employer mandate masks? And she said, of course they can. But also don't forget that your employer can mandate that you wear green on Tuesday. Now, was an employer ever going to do that? No. Can they? Yeah. If they want you to. Most people are at-will employees, and you have to follow my rules or you don't work for me. So what I want you to start thinking about is exactly that. And with the rules gone, with the MDHHS rules gone and the MDHHS rules gone, the burden now falls on you to make a decision about how you want to proceed. Now, before we go, there's one more thing. I know the MDHHS rules are gone and the MIOSHA rules are gone, and we all know the governor's executive orders are gone. But there's still a law out there you have to pay attention to with respect to this issue, and that's MCL 419.401 et sec. How's that a lawyer's way of putting it? It's is Public Act 238 of 2020, which was amended, I think, by Public Act 239 of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. But that's the law that protects people who can't come to work because they have COVID or because they've been exposed to COVID or because they have the symptoms of COVID. And remember, that law goes back and relies on what the CDC is saying about things like isolations and quarantines and when vaccinated people can come back to work. That's a law in the state of Michigan. It's not a rule. It's not an executive order that can be rescinded. It's the law. And until another law is passed overturning it and it's signed by the governor, that's the law of the state of Michigan. So keep that in mind as people start missing work. It's not a free-for-all now where we can start firing them. If they fit into one of these categories, they have some protections. So if you got any questions about any of this, or you want to talk through any of this, you need to call one of your Warner, Norcross, and Judd employment lawyers and walk through it with them so that we can make a reasoned and intelligent decision about how you're going to proceed. Thanks very much. I want to take this thing off, so I'm going to say goodnight, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.